Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Gopinatha, Radha Gopinatha Shri Radhe. Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jam Vishnupat Param Sivraj Kachara Shtotter Shat Svang Grace Abhaya Charinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Shrilu Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantara Chima Bhaktatam Ki Jai Nitya Gaura Premanande Hare Hare Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Today we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Chapter 8, Manifestation of Brahma from Vishnu. Text 2. Soham rinam kshula sukhaya dukkham. Soham rinam kshula sukhaya dukkham. Mahat kathanam viramaya tasya. Mahat kathanam viramaya tasya. Pravartaye Bhagavatam Puranam. Pravartaye Bhagavatam Puranam. Yad aha sakshat Bhagavan Rishipyaha. Yad aha sakshat Bhagavan Rishipyaha. Soham rinam kshula sukhaya dukkham. Mahat Katanam Viramaya Tasya Parvartaye Bhagavatam Puranam Yada Sakshat Bhagavan Rishepya Soham Dhinam Kshula Sukhaya Dukkham Mahat Katanam Viramaya Tasya Parvartaye Bhagavatam Puranam Yada Sakshat Bhagavan Rishepya Soham Dhinam Kshula Sukhaya Dukkham Mahat Katanam Viramaya Tasya Parvartate Bhagavatam Puranam Yada Sakshat Bhagavan Rishepya. Word to word Saha, that Aham, I, Nrinam, of the human being, Kshula, very little, Sukhaya, for happiness, Dukkham, distress, Mahat, great, Katanam, entered into, Viramaya, for mitigation, Tasya, his, Parvartaye, in beginning, Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, Puranam, Vedic supplement, Yat, which, Aha, said, Sakshat, directly, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Rishibhyaha, unto the sages. Translation of Prabhupada by His Divine Grace by Charan the Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Let me now begin speaking on the Bhagavad Purana, which was directly spoken to the great sages by the personality of Godhead, for the benefit of those who are entangled in extreme miseries for the sake of very little pleasure. Done. So, Prabhupada. The sage Maitreya proposed to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam because it was especially compiled and traditionally comes down in the disciplic succession for the solution of all the problems of human society. Only one who is fortunate can have the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees of the Lord. Under the spell of material energy, the living entities are entrapped in the bondage of many difficulties simply for the sake of a little bit of material happiness. They engage in fruitive activities not knowing the implications. Under the false impression that the body is the self, the living entities foolishly relate to so many false attachments. They think that they can engage with materialistic paraphernalia forever. This gross misconception of life is so strong that a person suffers continually, life after life, under the external energy of the Lord. If one comes in contact with the book Bhagavatam as well as with the devotee Bhagavata, who knows what the Bhagavatam is, then such a fortunate man gets out of the material entanglement. Therefore Sri Maitreya Muni, out of compassion for the suffering men in the world, proposes to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam first and last. Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadate Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrachatam Sahaganadakunatan Vitam Tam Zachevam Sadvetam Savadutam Parichana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahaganalalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamshta He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandha Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gauranga Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Pancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhya Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome to class. Actually, not yesterday. Yesterday was Radhashtami, special class, but the day before we just started a new chapter. After having chapter 7, we heard so many different inquiries of Vidura placed at the lotus feet of Maitreya Rishi, and now in chapter 8 we hear how the first text. I'll just read the translation again. So context. In the first text, Maitreya Muni glorifies Vidura actually. We see that as is the usual exchange between speaker and hearer, as we discussed also, especially in this last chapter. Speakers focused on that aspect of the exchange between the hearer and the speaker, how the proper attitude of both, and seeing the loving exchange, and of course in relation to Krishna. So yesterday's text, or day before, was text 1. The great sage Maitreya Muni said to Vidura, "The royal dynasty of King Puru is worthy to serve the pure devotees because all the descendants of that family are devoted to the personality of Godhead. You are also born in that family, and it is wonderful that because of your attempt, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are becoming newer and newer at every moment." So here we see how Maitreya Rishi, who is the speaker, and generally we think, and obviously that's the attitude of a proper hearer, to think himself subordinate to the speaker, to think himself fully dependent on enlightenment by the speaker, on his mercy and his blessings, to be able to also follow the instructions, assimilate the knowledge and put it in practice. But also we see here the speaker from his side, he doesn't think, if he's a proper speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, of representing the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a bona fide spiritual master, then he himself also thinks himself, he's not puffed up and thinks himself great, but he also has this humble attitude. And we see that here that Maitreya Rishi from his side, he is giving the credit to Vidura that, no, actually, I'm not such a great devotee. Like, before getting the mercy of Krishna and Uddhava, of being able to hear from Krishna by standing nearby while Uddhava was listening, directly spoken to by Krishna, that before that he had actually, his bhakti was tinged with jnana, right? Jnana Mishra Bhakti? Yeah, Jnana Mishra Bhakti, I think. So he was not a completely pure devotee up to that time, but then by the mercy of Krishna and Uddhava, he became a pure devotee and thus fully qualified to relate this message to Vidura, as we are hearing here in this part of Bhagavatam. And so he is thinking, no, I'm not a great devotee. What he is speaking, I was not even a pure devotee until quite recently, but you are born in such a great family where everyone is a devotee. So, and similarly, in the Puru dynasty being glorified by the speaker, I just recently read that also in beginning of 5th canto, when Shukadeva Goswami had narrated the glories of Priyavrata Maharaj to Parikshit Maharaj, and which are like quite inconceivable, even materially speaking. Like, we know those famous deeds that he did, like encircling the Meru mountain on a chariot, which was so effulgent that he imitated the sun and gave light to the parts which did not get light at that time, and thus making it even more convenient for the citizens, like kind of equaling or making up for the seasonal disadvantages. So that was one of his deeds, and by doing that we know just simply by the furs, or how's it called, like from the wheels being running there on the in different distances from the Sumeru mountain. Then he simply by that he created the seven oceans, for the 7 dweeps, the 7 islands of Bhumandala, of which the innermost is Jambudvipa, on which we are situated. So that was just one of his wonderful activities, and another, like from an external perspective, I was thinking is like even simply seeing that he, I can't remember, he had I think also 100 sons, just like Rishabdev. We hear then a bit later, and all that. Oh, no, but yeah, he had from his first wife Barhishmati. He had, I believe, maybe that is also 100 sons. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, very elevated sons also, whom of the Kshatriyas of whom he then gave these different islands of Bhumandala, one each to the first son being Agnitra, who got Jambudvip, and then I can't remember if I mix it up now with the Nava Yogendras. They are from Rishabdev, I believe, but he also had, I think, very few sons which were very elevated, fully self-realized. But anyway, but even from his second wife only, he had 3 sons who were then each of them became one a Manu later. What was the name? Uttama Tamasa, I think, and Raivata or something like that. Can't remember exactly. Do you remember the names of the Manus? Yeah. Okay, but in any case, I was thinking just like he had great descendants from his first wife, and then even from his second wife, like 3 different Manus. So imagine, and a Manu is like, is ruling for 71 Divya Yugas, right? For the whole Bhumandala. So yeah, even materially we can conceive like how great Priyavrata Maharaj was, and of course, and that he did actually reluctantly after. At first, he was focused. He simply wanted to fully engage in devotional services, per the instructions of Sri Narad Muni, as a Naishtika brahmachari. But then, we discussed recently that not only his father Swayambhu Manu, who is a Mahajana, tried to persuade him, but then when he was hesitant at first, because he was simply absorbed in devotional service, he didn't want to engage with anything external. Then even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, they came, and so 4 Mahajanas thing were there to convince him, because it's the wish of the Lord, so you have to take up ruling the earth. So what to speak of his devotional qualities, of his greatness. So that's why Shukadeva Goswami glorified his dynasty of coming from the side of, from Swayambhu Manu, but because before that this was discussed from Uttanapad, from his second son, including Dhruva Maharaj, their glories, and then here the glories of Priyavrata Maharaj, which continued then with Lord Rishabdev, for example, also. And so he glorified that dynasty as the greatest dynasty, and then Prabhupada mentions that, of course, why is it so great? Because especially there then also Lord Rishabdev appeared also. And similarly in the Yadu dynasty, of course, why is it so glorious? Because Krishna and Balaram appeared, and in the Raghu dynasty, because Lord Ramachandra appeared. And so Prabhupada explains there that Parikshit Maharaj might feel a bit, these are so great, but I'm not so fortunate. In our dynasty, Krishna didn't appear in the Kuru dynasty, but then that's why Shukadeva Goswami glorifies his dynasty then also, that actually you're even more fortunate, because in your dynasty Krishna didn't appear, but rather Krishna became the servant of your forefathers, of the Pandavas. So we see that he took many times the humble position of not only driving the chariot of Arjuna as per his directions, but also, welcoming the guests, washing their feet, and those kind of, and acting as a messenger. And in so many ways, he always was looking for opportunities to serve his pure devotees, the Pandavas. So that's why I said your dynasty is actually even more glorious. So similarly here, Maitreya Rishi glorifies the Kuru dynasty, in which Vidura, obviously, who is Yamaraj, appeared also. And now in today's text, I'll read the translation again. So, let me now begin speaking on the Bhagavad Purana, which was directly spoken to the great sages by the personality of Godhead, for the benefit of those who are entangled in extreme miseries for the sake of very little pleasure. So, this last part especially reminds me immediately of Bhagavad Prabhu. You recently quoted that verse. Unfortunately, I don't know the verse, but of Prahlad Maharaj, famous verse where he mentions this, how insignificant material pleasure is, and for that you have to go through miseries. That to get this sukham hitucham, you have to go through dukkam, so much misery. Similarly here, Maitreya Rishi is saying that why specifically did the Lord speak to Srimad Bhagavatam? For the benefit of those who are entangled in extreme miseries for the sake of very little pleasure. So here is kshula, very little. Kshula sukhaya, for very little sukha. Dukkam mahat, great distress you have to go through. But yeah, the people in general, they don't know that obviously, and so that's why it's so important to preach Srimad Bhagavatam. So, let's see. And then Prabhupada here, like one beautiful sentence he points out, is that under the spell of material energy, the living entities are entrapped in the bondage of many difficulties simply for the sake of a little bit of material happiness. So, on the same point, and then further he says that they engage in fruitive activities not knowing the implications. So, because we know the whole mentality of conditioned souls of us coming to the material world is that we think ourselves independent and joyous and control us. But that's also mercy of the Lord, of course, that to provide us this facility, because actually it's illusion, obviously, this thinking ourselves independent and that there is real pleasure other than giving pleasure to Krishna. And that's in complete contrast to what we heard yesterday, more elaborately especially, because it was the appearance day of Srimati Radharani, who is the topmost devotee, as we heard, and her, and Radha, what I come to is that the famous verse that were, like you said in Bhagavad Gita, it's only at one point Srimati Radharani is hinted to that we have to take shelter of her, but obviously not directly her name, which is Mahatmanas Tumanparta Daivim Prakritim Ashritaha, that this Daivim Prakriti, this transcendental divine energy of Krishna speaking, obviously, my energy, if you take shelter of that, then you are a Mahatma, a really great soul. Whereas conditioned souls, we think we are great because we feel ourselves independent, even though we are, as Prabhupada says, and we are kicked by Maya, or here he says we are entrapped in the bondage of these fruitive activities. And I heard a little bit yesterday also of my Guru Maharaj speaking obviously on Radhashtami, on Srimati Radharani's glories. But he mentioned there that it's important also, even if we hear of like these elevated topics, to always remember that to even get a slight understanding of the glories of Srimati Radharani, of pure devotion, that the essence is to always remember that we are the servant of the servant, and that we never can approach Krishna directly, what to speak of Srimati Radharani, which is even more confidential. And we see that, as we discussed yesterday, that even Srimati Radharani exemplifies that so amazingly, like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains in Chaitanya Charitamrita that she takes 10 million times more pleasure by arranging for her gopi friends to come get somehow other direct association with Krishna. Because, that's the nature of the spiritual world, that they know that it is unlimited pleasure to be with Krishna, that he's the all attractive, he's the person which has unlimited sweetness in his exchanges with you. And so, but then rather than being selfish and trying, this means I want to be with Krishna all the time, rather than the nature of pure devotees is to having even a stronger desire then of course desiring also to be directly with Krishna, but having an even stronger desire to have others get this happiness of being with Krishna. And paradoxically, and this happiness then from seeing others being happy with Krishna gives you 10 million times more pleasure. And that's like really inconceivable. But that's how it is being under Daivi Prakriti, under Srimati Radharani's shelter. And this humble mood is discussed, we see here similarly with Maitreya and Vidura, who both of them think that their Krishna consciousness is not as great as the others, and it is by the association with the other devotee only that I become more Krishna conscious. Like here, she said in yesterday's verse, Maitreya said that because of your attempt, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are becoming newer and newer at every moment. So he's putting forward that Vidura, because you have such ecstatic love and in humility are putting forward these inquiries about all the different topics relating to the Lord for the benefit of everyone and for us, that we can meditate on His mercy through different angles. Like the creation was covered quite extensively already, but also all the 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam. And so it is by your devotion that I am enabled to speak better and to be more Krishna conscious. So that's the attitude of Maitreya Rishi here. And Vidura, obviously, we heard it previously many times how humble he is, how he puts forward his inquiries. And in fact, even then we'll hear at the end of 4th canto, when their conversation finishes here in Srimad Bhagavatam, then Vidura will, in complete humility and ecstatic love, fall down at the lotus feet of Maitreya Rishi and thank him. And that shows again, like he already is a pure devotee, he knows everything, but he feels so much indebted to Sri Maitreya Rishi that for having the opportunity to hear from him Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's here the theme also today that Prabhupada mentions in the purport. Where is it? So only one who is fortunate can have the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees of the Lord. And because then he says what we read before about the spell of material. Because if you don't hear that, then you are under the spell of the material energy. There's no opportunity of people to come out unless they get the association of pure devotees. And here later than Prabhupada, he says that if one comes in contact with the book Bhagavatam as well as with the devotee Bhagavatam, who knows what the Bhagavatam is, then such a fortunate man gets out of the material entanglement. Therefore, Sri Maitreya Muni, out of compassion for the suffering men in the world, proposes to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam first and last. So, Prabhupada makes here the point he does several times in Srimad Bhagavatam about that even having the bona fide Srimad Bhagavatam, which was spoken by many different devotees over here, it's like conversation in conversation, and which itself already increases the mercy coming upon us of hearing from all those different devotees, again repeating from what they heard from other pure devotees. but still, even just like Ganesh Prabhu made that point a few times, that still if we just read the book, we still can't get out of our misconceptions that we might carry, and we can't get the full benefit. Like I said, that Prabhupada mentions at one point that if you only read books, study the Shastra, but don't associate with devotees, then you come to an impersonal conclusion actually. And that's quite scary or like shocking if you about it, that even having the bona fide knowledge, which is so clearly directing towards the conclusion of that the absolute truth is a person, is this most beautiful, all-attractive Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, Krishna, still you won't be able to realize that. And that's amazing. Unless you have the association of pure devotees who really help, as Prabhupada says here, the person Bhagavata, not just the book Bhagavatam. And yeah, that's why we see in the Srimad Bhagavatam itself also how indebted those personalities feel to have the association of other great devotees. And more point I want to and so in terms of taking shelter of this Daivi Prakriti of Srimati Radharani, so it's not, we can't get it directly, but it happens through the Guru Parampara, through our spiritual masters who are themselves also in this mood of servant of the servant, fully surrendered to their spiritual master and going up all the way to ultimately to Srimati Radharani or Lord Nityananda Prabhu, and who are the direct servants of Krishna. And in terms of getting the shelter of the spiritual master and through the spiritual master of ultimately of Krishna's lotus feet, I mentioned that one time recently. I find it really beautiful how, like Prabhupada, he uses his language so many times of really making things which are many times might already appear like simple, straightforward, but which can't really pierce, but which would stay more on our superficial level of the mind, rather than really going into our heart, were it not for Prabhupada's genius. So here in fourth canto, that's in the section with the prachetas, which I discussed a few times, which is really amazing. So there in the purport to text, fourth canto, chapter 30, text 41, which is the text is when the prachetas explain to the Lord that, or even the greatest personalities, all the great sages, Manu, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, even they cannot actually appropriately pray to you, because no one can fully understand you, so no one can fully glorify you. Even Anantashesh can't do, so what to speak of us? But everyone does according to his capacity, so we also do like that. And Srila Prabhupada explains that at the point that our prayer to the Supreme, we should understand that our prayer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead can never be complete, because we are imperfect and we can never completely understand Him, so how can we appropriately pray? But Prabhupada says that even when one is in the darkest region of existence, he is allowed to offer prayers to the Lord according to his capacity. And he quotes there the Bhagavad Gita 9:32, Mam hi partivya pashrita, that yepisyu papa yonaha, even the papa yonaha, those of sinful birth, which is triyovasyastatat shudras tepiyanti paramgatim, that even they can paramgatim, can attain the highest goal if mam hi partivya pashrita, if you take full shelter of Krishna. But then this sentence, real love, which I want to come to, is here. Prabhupada says that one who is brought under the lotus feet of the Lord by the endeavor of the Lord's servant, the spiritual master, is certainly immediately purified, however low-born he may be. So that's like one nice explanation also of this verse from Bhagavad Gita, Mami Pativya Pashritya, that how we don't have the strength to take shelter of Krishna by ourselves. We don't have the qualification. It's and we say, okay, yeah, of course not, it's the spiritual master's mercy, but this mercy, sometimes we might still carry this kind of misconception with us, like we hear, like, I remember to Prabhupada back then, one time they said that, I forgot the name of this bogus guru, but in any case, that they said that someone initiated his disciple, and by doing that he touched him or something like that, and then he gave him all the spiritual power, and then he fell down crying because now he lost everything. And obviously Prabhupada was laughing, and he said that's complete bogus, because actually it's opposite. The more you preach, the more you realize yourself the knowledge, and the more you're able then to even advance and to preach even more. So we might carry this misconception of that still, that mercy, okay, it's kind of just some magical or aloof thing come somehow falling upon you, but it's not exactly like that. Of course, it's not a gross thing like that you give hand over. It's subtle, but it also comes in, as we hear here, that the spiritual master, he doesn't simply bless his disciple and that's it, but he, as Prabhupada says here, by the endeavor of the Lord's servant. So we see that obviously Srila Prabhupada himself exemplified that so extraordinarily, inconceivably, how much he endeavored to bring all those conditioned souls to his lotus feet, and thus through the parampara to Krishna's lotus feet. So it's, we should always remember that it's from the spiritual master side. He not only takes our karma, which we brought at initiation, and if we even continue to create more karma, then he gets that as well. So he doesn't only take some suffering on our behalf, but he even endeavors very hard to actually bring us to sanity, to give up our foolish mentality of trying to lord over material nature and to fully surrender to the Lord. So, so it's not a cheap thing to get the shelter of Srimati Radharani and Krishna, but it's a great mercy which we should always feel indebted to. And let me just think if I missed anything in the purport. I think it's a good point to end here. If you have any question or comment. Like the verses is in the part of the prayers of the Prachetas to the Lord who appeared in his 800 form, and where they explained that actually we can only do to our small capacity, so please be kind upon us and accept our prayers. And Prabhupada makes the point that first of all, that no one is qualified to offer proper prayers, but it's the Lord's mercy that he accepts. That is so nice how he says that even one is in the darkest region of existence, he is allowed to offer prayers to the Lord. So even that is funny, because we might think, I do a favor to Gopinath if I come here and offer my beautiful prayers, but rather we should always remember that it's great mercy of the Lord that he knows that no one can fully glorify him or can fully properly pray to him in that sense, but still he's kind enough to allow us to pray, and it's not like that he is like kind of arrogant or I'm merciful, so I tolerate. Of course we know actually he's very pleased even by our tiniest efforts to try to please him, to approach him. So he is pleased, but we, from our side, we should remember it's his mercy that we are allowed to even to pray. And but Prabhupada then quotes then this Mam Hipata Vyapashitya and explains that one who is brought under the lotus feet of the Lord, by the endeavor of the Lord's servant, the spiritual master is certainly immediately purified, however low-born he may be. So, in the I expanded on that it's to get under the shelter of Krishna, to be able to, like even if you're low-born, which we all of us were, that it's on the spiritual master's mercy and it's the spiritual master's endeavor to be able to do that. Any things particularly about that? Okay. Okay. Kanantarachima Bhagavatam Ke Cha, Srila Prabhupada Ke Cha.